A loner cowboy saved a dying native girl, not knowing she taught him how to love again. The borderlands of New Mesa were wide, dry, and quiet, a place where old wagon ruts crossed under floating satellite shadows. Long ago, miners and settlers had chased silver and rare star ore here. Now the mines were mostly empty, the towns smaller, and the sky filled with slow-moving cargo drones that never landed. Rowan liked it that way. He was a loner cowboy, the kind who fixed his own gear, slept under his own roof, and kept his life simple. He had a small cabin near a canyon where the wind whistled all night. He had a horse named Cedar, a few tools, a water purifier, and a solar panel that powered a battered radio he rarely turned on. People in the nearest settlement, Dustbridge, called him Hale the Quiet. Some said he was mean. Others said he was broken. Rowan never corrected them. He just rode in, bought what he needed, and rode back out before anyone could ask too many questions. That afternoon, the heat pressed down like a heavy hand. Rowan's canteen was half full, and Cedar's steps were steady. Rowan wasn't hunting a bounty or chasing trouble. He was simply checking his fence line in the old water pump he shared with no one. The pump sat near a crumbling metal tower from the mining days, a tall skeleton of iron and cables that creaked in the wind. Cedar slowed, ears twitching. Rowan noticed it at once. His horse didn't spook for nothing. "What is it, boy?" Rowan murmured. Cedar's nostrils flared. He angled his head toward a patch of rocks and scrub brush where shadows gathered under the harsh sun. Rowan followed the direction with his eyes and saw something that didn't belong there. Cloth, dark hair, a boot. Rowan swung down from the saddle and walked forward slowly, hand resting near his belt, not because he wanted to fight, but because the frontier taught caution.
When he reached the rocks, he crouched.
Her face was pale, her lips dry. She wore travel clothes made of leather and woven fabric, with thin silver threads running through the seams, smart material, the kind used by people who walked long distances and needed protection from heat and cold. She wasn't moving much. Rowan checked for breathing. It was there, but shallow and uneven. One hand was pressed against her side, and when Rowan gently moved the fabric, he saw a wound that had been treated badly, bandaged too tight, then torn loose, then bandaged again. There was dried blood, but no fresh bleeding. She had been trying to keep herself alive. Rowan's jaw tightened. He didn't like seeing anyone left out here to die, even if he didn't understand why they were here. Cedar snorted behind him, as if urging him to hurry. Rowan's mind argued with itself. He could ride away and tell himself it wasn't his problem. He had done that before, long ago, when caring had cost him too much. Caring made you slow. Caring made you vulnerable. But the woman's chest rose weakly again. She was alive right now, and that meant something. Rowan exhaled, like he was letting go of a hard thought. "All right," he said quietly. "Don't make me regret it." He slid an arm under her shoulders and lifted carefully. She was light, like she had gone days without proper food. Her head fell against his chest. Rowan carried her to Cedar and, with practiced care, secured her across the saddle. He adjusted his bedroll to support her back so she wouldn't bounce too much on the ride. Then he climbed up behind her and turned the horse toward his cabin. The ride took longer than usual. Rowan kept his pace steady, avoiding sharp rocks and dry gullies. He watched her face in the corner of his vision, looking for signs she was slipping away. She stared at him as if she couldn't decide if he was real. "Water," she whispered, voice rough. Rowan slowed and brought the canteen to her lips. "Small sips," he said. "Don't choke." She drank carefully. Her hand trembled as it tried to hold the canteen, but Rowan held it for her. When she finished, she leaned back, eyes closing again. Rowan studied her clothing more closely as they rode. On her wrist was a thin bracelet with tiny etched symbols. Not corporate, not town-made. Something older, something made with respect. He had seen symbols like that in stories and on posters around Dustbridge. People called them the Sky Mesa tribes or the Canyon clans. They were native communities who had lived on this planet since the first colony ships, keeping their language and traditions even as technology changed around them. They were known for protecting certain lands, places they considered sacred, places corporations wanted to dig up. Rowan wondered if that was why she had been left in the desert. The sun was low when his cabin finally came into view, tucked near the canyon edge and surrounded by a simple fence. Rowan guided Cedar into the shade and dismounted. He lifted the woman again, carrying her inside. The cabin smelled like leather, dust, and old coffee. It was plain but clean. A small stove sat near a table with 2 chairs. A rack held tools and spare machine parts. On a shelf were a few supplies, antiseptic spray, bandages, protein packs, and a small med kit from the mining era. Rowan laid her on his bed, then washed his hands and went to work. He cut away the loose bandage and checked the injury. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't hopeless. The wound looked like it came from a sharp piece of metal, maybe from a crash or a fall near machinery. Rowan cleaned it gently, careful not to hurt her more than necessary. He used antiseptic, then a healing patch that warmed as it activated. The patch wasn't magic, but it could reduce infection and help skin close faster. As he worked, the woman stirred again and made a soft sound. "It's all right," Rowan said, surprised at how calm his voice sounded. "You're safe for now." They were dark and alert, even through pain. She looked around the cabin, noticing the rifle by the door, the tools, the simple life. "You live alone," she murmured. Rowan nodded. "Yes." She swallowed. "Why?" "Because it's quiet." She let that sit, then her eyelids drooped again. "Quiet can be heavy," she whispered. Rowan didn't answer. He tied the new bandage, then placed a cup of water near the bed. He brought her a small protein pack and helped her take a bite. She chewed slowly, like her body didn't trust food anymore. Night came fast as it did on New Mesa. The canyon wind rose, tapping at the cabin walls and humming through cracks like a distant song. Rowan lit a lantern and started a small fire in the stove for warmth. He expected to feel annoyed, burdened, trapped. Instead, he felt restless. He sat at the table and listened to the outside world. Usually the only sounds were wind and the occasional night bird. But tonight, something else threaded through the air. Faraway engine noise, faint but steady. Rowan's head lifted. He stood and walked to the window. The darkness outside was deep, but the stars were bright. In the distance, beyond the ridge, he saw a small glow moving slowly, like a vehicle's running light, being hidden and revealed by uneven ground. Rowan's chest tightened. He didn't like visitors, especially ones with engines. He checked the locks on his door and moved quietly to the radio on the shelf. He turned it on low, scanning for chatter. Static filled the room, then a burst of voices, then static again. He adjusted the dial until he caught a clearer signal. "Lost, visual, sweep the canyon line. Boss wants her alive, don't damage the package." Rowan froze. Her. Rowan clicked the radio off immediately. He turned and looked at the woman on the bed. She was awake now, listening. Her eyes were sharper than before, and fear sat behind them like a shadow. "They're close," Rowan said softly. She nodded once, barely moving her head. "Yes." Rowan stepped closer. "Who are they?" Then she spoke, voice weak but steady. "Men hired by a company," she said. "They came to our land. They want to dig where they're not welcome." We said no. He had heard of companies pushing borders, trying to buy land, trying to take what wasn't theirs. He had also heard what happened when people refused. Not always something anyone could prove, but enough that fear traveled faster than truth. "They chased you?" Rowan asked. She nodded again. "I ran. I fell. I thought it was over." Rowan looked down at her wrist bracelet again. "What do they want from you?" The woman's hand moved toward her belt, where a small device sat clipped to a strap. It was dark and scratched, and its power light blinked low. "This," she said.
Rowan didn't touch it.
"What is it?" "A memory stone," she said, using the old term even though the item looked like a modern data core. "It holds proof. A recording. Their plans."
Rowan stared.
"A simple thing, small enough to fit in a pocket, heavy enough to start wars. I was supposed to bring it to someone in Dustbridge," she continued. "A commenter to the Planetary Council. If the council sees it, the company can't pretend." Rowan felt a bitter taste rise in him. Councils. Courts. Justice. He had once believed in those things. He had once tried to do the right way, the clean way, the legal way. It had not ended well for him. Didn't say that. He didn't want to poison her hope. Instead, he asked, "What's your name?" She blinked, surprised by the question. "Tala," she said. Rowan nodded. "I'm Rowan. Tala." He repeated as if saying it carefully made it safer. Outside, the engine sound grew slightly louder, then faded, then returned, like someone circling, searching. Rowan moved to his small storage chest and pulled out supplies. Extra water, dried food, a spare battery cell, and a folded emergency blanket. He packed quickly, quietly. His mind was already choosing a path. The back canyon trail, the old mining tunnel that led to the dry riverbed, the hidden route that didn't show on most maps. Tala watched him. "You're going to leave?" she asked. Rowan glanced at her. "Yes, but you're coming too." Her eyes widened. "I can't ride like this." "You can," Rowan said, more confident than he felt. "Slow, careful, but you can." Tala studied him, as if trying to understand why a loner cowboy would risk his quiet life for someone he had met less than a day ago. "Why?" she whispered again. Rowan's hands paused on the straps of his pack.
He didn't have a clean answer, not one that made sense.
He only knew that when he had seen her in the dust. Something inside him had refused to turn away, something that had been asleep for years. "Because I was there," he said finally, "and I couldn't just leave you." Pain still sat on her face, but something else appeared too. Something like relief, something like a small spark. Outside, a faint light moved along the ridge again, closer now, like a searching eye. Rowan blew out the lantern. The cabin fell into shadow, lit only by the dim glow of moonlight slipping through a crack in the curtain. He leaned closer to Tala and spoke low. "Stay quiet. When I say move, you move." Rowan listened to the wind, to the distant engines, to the quiet heartbeat of a life that was no longer simple. He had saved a dying girl without knowing what she carried. Now he understood it wasn't only a device. It was truth, and it had brought danger to his door, along with something else he didn't expect, a chance to feel human again. In the darkness, Rowan lifted his rifle, not eager to fight, but ready to protect. And Tala, weak but awake, held her memory stone close, wondering if this quiet cowboy might be the reason she survived, and the reason, someday, he might learn to live again. The canyon wind carried dust through the night as Rowan moved carefully inside the dark cabin. The lantern was off and only thin lines of moonlight slipped through the wooden walls. Outside, the low hum of engines grew louder, then faded again as if someone was searching slowly, patiently. Rowan packed fast but quietly. He knew the land better than anyone. There were hidden trails through the canyon that most maps ignored. If he left now, they might still escape before sunrise. Tala tried to sit up, her face tight with pain. Rowan stepped closer and helped her gently. "Slow," he said. "You're still hurt." "I can walk," she whispered, though her voice showed strain. "You don't need to walk," Rowan replied. "You just need to stay awake." He wrapped a thick blanket around her shoulders and handed her a small flask of water. Tala drank slowly, her eyes never leaving him. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again, softer this time. Rowan paused. He didn't like talking about reasons. Reasons led to memories, and memories were heavy. "Because you need help," he said simply. Tala studied him, sensing there was more behind his quiet words, but she didn't push further. Outside, a faint light moved along the ridge again. Rowan's body tensed. "They're closer," he murmured. He moved to the back door and opened it slowly. Cold air rushed inside, carrying the smell of metal and sand. Cedar waited outside, calm but alert. Rowan secured their packs on the saddle, then returned inside to lift Tala carefully. She leaned against him, her weight light but real. Rowan felt the warmth of her body through his coat, and for a brief moment he remembered another time when he had carried someone injured. The memory came quickly and left just as fast, like a shadow passing across his mind. They stepped into the night. The sky was wide and full of stars, but Rowan did not stop to admire it. Alla gently on Cedar and climbed up behind her. "We ride quiet," he said near her ear. "No talking unless needed." She nodded. Rowan guided Cedar toward the narrow trail behind the cabin. The horse moved carefully between rocks, hooves barely making sound. The canyon walls rose around them, tall and dark, hiding them from open sight. For a while, only the sound of the wind followed them. Tala felt the rhythm of the horse beneath her and the steady presence of Rowan behind her. She felt safe in a way she had not felt for days. The pain in her side pulsed, but the bandage held, and her breathing slowly became stronger. "You know these lands well," she whispered after a while. Rowan nodded. "I've been here long enough."
"Long enough to hide," she said gently.
Rowan didn't answer. They reached a narrow pass where the ground sloped downward toward an old mining route. Rusted metal beams marked the entrance to a tunnel carved decades earlier. Rowan stopped Cedar and listened. Silence. He led the horse inside the tunnel. The air turned cooler, and their footsteps echoed faintly. Small lights attached to the walls flickered weakly, powered by forgotten generators that remembered their purpose even after the miners left. Tala looked around in wonder. "I didn't know this place existed." "Most don't," Rowan said. They moved slowly through the tunnel until the exit appeared ahead, opening into a dry riverbed hidden between cliffs. Rowan stopped there and let Cedar drink from a small water pocket collected from underground springs. Tala's eyes closed for a moment, but she forced them open again. You should rest, Rowan said. If I sleep, I might slow you down, she replied. Rowan shook his head. You're already slowing me down, he said calmly, but that's fine. They stayed only a short time before moving again. Rowan chose a path that followed the dry riverbed, where tracks disappeared quickly in loose sand. The moon climbed higher, casting silver light across the land. After some time, Tala spoke again. The memory stone, it has proof of everything. They plan to dig into sacred ground. They don't care about the tribe or the spirits of the land. They only want what's under it. My grandmother said the land remembers every step we take, Tala continued. She said we must walk with respect. But those men, they walk like nothing matters. Rowan felt a small knot tighten in his chest. He had seen men like that before, people who chased profit without thinking about cost. You believe the council will listen? He asked. I have to believe, Tala said softly. Rowan didn't respond. Hope was a dangerous thing, but he admired her for holding on to it. As they rode, a sudden light flashed across the sky behind them. Rowan turned his head and saw a small drone moving slowly, scanning the ground with a blue beam. He cursed under his breath. They found our trail, he said. Tala stiffened. Rowan guided Cedar toward a cluster of tall rock formations that cast deep shadows. He dismounted and helped Tala down. Stay close, he whispered. They moved behind the rocks as the drone hovered overhead. The blue light swept across the sand, searching. Rowan held his breath, one hand resting lightly on Tala's shoulder to steady her. The drone paused. For a moment, Rowan thought it had spotted them. Then it moved on, drifting toward another part of the canyon. Rowan exhaled slowly. That was close, Tala whispered. Yes, he said. They waited several minutes before moving again. Rowan chose a new direction, zigzagging across the terrain to confuse trackers. The journey became slower as Tala's strength faded. Near dawn, they reached a small sheltered area between cliffs. Rowan stopped and helped her down again. We rest here, he said. Tala leaned against a rock, breathing hard. Rowan built a small fire hidden from open view and heated water for tea made from dried desert leaves. He handed her the cup, and she drank gratefully. The first light of morning touched the sky. Rowan sat across from her, watching the horizon. Tala studied him quietly. You weren't always alone, she said gently.
Rowan looked at the fire.
No. The silence stretched between them. People leave, he said finally. Sometimes because they choose to, sometimes because you fail to protect them. Tala saw the weight in his eyes and didn't ask more. You didn't fail me, she said softly. Rowan looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. You found me when no one else did. He turned away slightly, uncomfortable with praise. The sun rose higher, warming the cold air. Birds began to call from distant cliffs. For a brief moment, the world felt peaceful again. But Rowan knew peace wouldn't last. They won't stop, he said quietly. They'll keep searching, Tala nodded. Then we keep moving. Despite pain and exhaustion, she carried strength inside her, something calm and steady like the land itself. He realized she wasn't just someone he rescued. She was someone who refused to give up. And without realizing it, Rowan felt something change inside him, a small crack in the walls he had built around his heart. For the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. They rested only long enough to regain strength before preparing to move again toward Dustbridge, where hope waited and danger followed close behind. The sun rose slowly over the canyon, turning the red rocks gold. Rowan watched the horizon carefully while Tala rested against a smooth stone nearby. The small fire had burned down to warm ashes, and the quiet of morning felt almost peaceful. But Rowan knew peace on the frontier never lasted long. He stood and checked Cedar's saddle, tightening the straps and making sure the supplies were secure. Every movement was calm and practiced. Years of living alone had made him careful with details. A loose strap or a missing tool could mean trouble later. Tala slowly stood up, testing her balance. She still moved carefully, but her strength had returned a little. Rowan noticed and nodded quietly. You're healing fast, he said. Our healers taught us how to survive, she replied gently. And you helped. Rowan didn't respond to the thanks. Instead, he looked toward the distant hills. We should move, he said. The sooner we reach Dustbridge, the better. They climbed onto Cedar again, riding slowly along the hidden path that followed the dry riverbed. The air warmed quickly as the sun climbed higher. Small desert plants glowed under the light and birds circled above. For a while, they rode in silence. Tala felt the steady movement of the horse and the calm presence of Rowan behind her. She realized that even without speaking much, he listened carefully to everything around him. The wind, the distant sounds, the rhythm of the land itself. "You trust the land," she said after a while. Rowan shrugged slightly. "It tells you when something is wrong." She nodded, understanding. As they reached a higher ridge, Rowan stopped Cedar and looked down toward a wide valley. In the distance, small metal buildings marked the outer edges of Dustbridge. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and transport vehicles moved slowly between structures. "We're close," Rowan said. Relief crossed Tala's face, but it faded quickly when Rowan raised his hand for silence. A faint rumbling echoed across the valley. Rowan narrowed his eyes. A dust cloud moved along the far road, several vehicles traveling fast. "They're ahead of us," he said quietly. Tala's breath caught. "How?" "They're guessing where you're going," Rowan replied. "Or they tracked us better than I thought." He guided Cedar away from the ridge and down into a narrow canyon path that curved toward Dustbridge from another direction. "We go around," he said. "Stay out of sight." The path was rough, forcing them to move slowly. Rock shifted under Cedar's hooves, and the canyon walls blocked the view of the sky. Tala felt tension build again. "Rowan," she said softly, "if they catch us—" "They won't," he said firmly. She believed him, even though she didn't know why. After several hours, they reached the back edge of Dustbridge. The settlement was small but busy, a mix of old frontier buildings and newer metal structures powered by solar panels. People walked between market stalls, trading supplies and stories. Rowan stopped before entering. "You know someone here?" he asked. "A man named Elias. He runs a communication shop. He helps people send messages off-world." He knew of Elias, a quiet older man who kept to himself and avoided trouble. "All right," Rowan said. "We go straight there, no stops." Several people glanced at Rowan, recognizing the quiet cowboy who rarely stayed long. Others noticed Tala and her injured state, whispering quietly. Rowan ignored the attention, guiding Cedar through the narrow streets. They reached a small shop near the edge of town. The door was made of reinforced glass, with old wires hanging along the walls. Rowan helped Tala down and supported her as they walked inside. The air smelled like dust and warm metal. An older man looked up from behind a workbench covered with communication devices. His eyes widened when he saw Tala. "Tala?" he said softly. "You made it." She nodded weakly. "Elias, I need your help." Elias closed the shop door quickly and locked it. Rowan stood near the entrance, watching through the window while Tala removed the memory stone from her belt. "This contains everything," she said. "Proof of what the company is planning." Elias took it carefully, examining the device. "This is serious," he said. "If this is real—" "It is," Tala said firmly. Elias moved to a console and began connecting the memory stone to his system. Lights blinked as the data transferred. Rowan remained silent, scanning the street outside. A few minutes passed. Then Rowan noticed movement. 2 armored vehicles entering town from the main road.
His body tensed. "They're here," he said quietly.
Tala turned toward the window, fear returning to her eyes. Elias looked up sharply. "How long do I have?" "Not long," Rowan replied. Elias worked faster, fingers moving quickly across controls. The system hummed as the upload progressed. Outside, people began to notice the arriving vehicles. The atmosphere shifted from normal to uneasy. Rowan stepped closer to the door, hand resting near his rifle. "You finish? We leave fast," he said. Tala watched him. "You don't have to stay," she whispered. "You've done enough." "I don't leave halfway." Her chest tightened at his words. A loud voice echoed outside, ordering people to move aside. The company agents were searching building by building. Elias finally nodded. "Done. The data is sent. It's heading to the council network now." Relief washed over Tala, but Rowan knew sending the data didn't mean safety yet. "We need a back exit," he said. Elias pointed toward a hidden door behind a curtain. "That leads to the alley." Rowan guided Tala toward it. As they stepped outside, the sound of boots echoed nearby. Rowan led her quickly down the narrow alley, moving toward the edge of town. They almost made it. A voice shouted behind them. "Stop!" Rowan turned slightly, seeing 2 agents approaching, weapons raised but not firing. He pushed Tala forward gently. "Keep moving," he said. She hesitated. "Rowan." "Go." The agent slowed, studying him. "You're interfering with corporate business," one of them said coldly. Rowan said nothing. Behind him, Tala continued moving toward safety, tears burning in her eyes as she realized what he was doing. The moment stretched. The agents moved closer. Rowan's hand rested near his rifle, but he didn't draw it. He knew a fight in the middle of town could hurt innocent people. Then, from the distance, a loud announcement echoed through speakers across Dustbridge. "Attention. Emergency council message incoming." Everyone froze. The agents hesitated. A public screen lit up near the market square, showing an official seal from the Planetary Council. The uploaded evidence had arrived faster than expected. Voices spread through the town as people gathered to watch. Rowan allowed himself a small breath. Tala stopped at the end of the alley and turned back, watching him. In that moment, she understood something important. The loner cowboy who claimed to need no one had chosen to stand and protect her, not because he had to, but because somewhere inside him, he still believed in doing what was right. And as the council message began to play, the balance of power started to shift, but Rowan knew this was not the end yet. It was only the beginning of a fight that would change both their lives forever. The sun was high now, casting bright light over Dustbridge, but Rowan didn't relax. The council's message had gone through, sending proof of the company's illegal plans into the public network. Yet that didn't mean the danger was over. The company agents had not left town. They were still here, still searching, still watching. Rowan led Tala through the narrow streets, taking paths most people avoided. The small alleyways, broken stairways, and hidden corridors of the settlement became their highway. She followed closely, wincing every now and then as her side throbbed, but determination pushed her forward. "Rowan," she said quietly, "I don't understand. Why are you helping me like this? You don't even know me." Rowan glanced back, his eyes hard but steady. "Maybe I do, in my own way. Maybe I've been waiting for someone to need me again." His voice was calm, almost distant, but she could feel the weight behind it. She studied him as they rounded a corner. His face was weathered, sunburned, and lined from years on the frontier, but there was a steady strength there, too. A quiet kind of courage that didn't show off or demand attention. Tala realized that strength was not just in his arms or his rifle, but in his choices and his persistence. They reached the outer edge of Dustbridge, a stretch of rocky land leading to the canyon. Rowan guided Cedar down the slope carefully, the horse picking its steps with precision. Every second counted now, and Rowan's focus never wavered. "You'll be safe there," Rowan said finally, pointing toward a hidden canyon trail that would take Tala to Elias's ally beyond town. "Follow this. It will lead you to people who can protect you until the council acts." Tala nodded, swallowing hard. "And you?" she asked. "You'll come with me?" Rowan shook his head. "No, I stay behind." His hand rested on Cedar's neck. "Someone has to watch the town and make sure they don't cause more trouble. You get out first." Tala studied him, fear and gratitude fighting in her chest. "Why? Why would you risk yourself for me?" Rowan looked at the horizon, where the company vehicles were still searching. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because I couldn't leave you. Because I can still choose." He didn't elaborate, but Tala could see it in his eyes. Years of solitude, of lost hope, had left him wary, but something inside was awakening, something human again. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. "You're not just a loner, Rowan. You're brave. And good." He gave a small, almost invisible nod and stepped back. "Go. Now." Tala urged Cedar forward, following the hidden trail. As she moved, she glanced back once. Rowan remained at the edge of town, standing tall, watching, ready. Even alone, he did not falter. Minutes stretched into hours as she followed the winding canyon paths. The memory stone remained safely tucked in her bag, pulsing faintly with its stored data. She kept thinking about Rowan, about the quiet courage it took for someone to act when the world had told them to turn away. Finally, she reached a small settlement of allied tribespeople on the other side of the cliffs. They greeted her, relieved and wary at the same time. She handed the memory stone to their leader, who examined it and nodded. "This will reach the council safely. The company will not get away with this." Tala felt a wave of relief, but her thoughts drifted back to Rowan. She wished she could thank him properly, wish him safety, wish him something more. But for now, she had to focus on the mission. Back in Dustbridge, Rowan remained vigilant. The company agents had not discovered Tala's escape yet, and he intended to keep it that way. His rifle rested against his shoulder as he watched the streets, moving quietly from shadow to shadow. The agents' frustration grew. They had expected easy capture, but the quiet cowboy had turned the town into a maze. Every alley Rowan knew became a trap for them, every turn unpredictable. The town's citizens noticed his movements, some fearing him, some silently admiring him. He didn't care. Rowan had only one focus: keep the threat at bay long enough for Tala to reach safety. Hours passed. The sun dipped toward the horizon, turning the rocks red and gold again. Rowan remained alert, scanning every movement, every shadow. The wind shifted, carrying distant sounds of engines. The agents were leaving, at least for now, realizing that Dustbridge was not an easy target. Rowan allowed himself a slow breath. As night fell, he returned to his cabin. Cedar followed, tired but steady. Rowan removed the rifle from his shoulder and sat near the small fire he built. He stared into the flames, thinking of Tala and the day's events. For a moment he allowed himself to feel something he had buried long ago. Hope. Hope. That maybe, even in a world full of danger and solitude, someone could remind him of what it meant to care, to act, to feel. The stars appeared over the canyon, bright and clear. Rowan looked up, the quiet of the desert surrounding him. He knew the frontier would never be fully safe, that danger could return at any moment. But tonight, he had made a choice. He had acted, and someone lived because of it. Rowan reached for a small journal he kept tucked in his coat. He wrote briefly, not because anyone would read it, but because he needed to mark the day. Saved a life. Didn't turn away. Maybe it still matters. He paused, staring at the words. Years of loneliness, years of walking a path without connection had brought him here. And now, even in the quiet, he felt the beginnings of something he hadn't allowed himself in a long time. The possibility of trust, of companionship, of love. Outside, the cedar moved quietly, shifting hooves on the soft ground. Rowan whispered, "Good boy, you've done well today." The horse snorted softly in response. For the first time in years, Rowan felt the weight of his solitude lessen, replaced by a strange lightness. It wasn't complete happiness. It never would be, but it was something. A spark that Tala had ignited without even realizing it. He leaned back against the cabin wall, listening to the wind, the rustle of desert plants, the distant call of night birds. He imagined Tala reaching safety, alive and well, carrying the memory stone to the council. The thought warmed him. A soft smile touched his lips, subtle and almost imperceptible. Rowan Hale, the quiet cowboy, had learned something important. Courage wasn't just about surviving the desert, or riding alone, or hiding from the world. It was about stepping forward when someone needed help, even if it cost him comfort, even if it forced him to feel again. Night deepened. The desert stretched endlessly around him, filled with silence and shadows. Rowan watched the stars, feeling a quiet connection to the world, to life itself. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel completely alone. Somewhere, Tala moved towards safety, carrying proof of truth and a hope that the world could change. And Rowan, the loner, remained vigilant, watching over the land, the town, and the future he might never have expected. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The company would regroup. The frontier would still be dangerous. But tonight, Rowan allowed himself a small truth. He had saved someone, and in doing so, he had found a piece of himself he thought was gone forever. The fire crackled softly. Rowan leaned back, eyes on the sky, and let the desert hold him in its quiet embrace. The stars whispered above, the wind carried its gentle song, and Rowan Hale finally understood. Life, even on the edge of nowhere, still had meaning. And somewhere deep inside, Tala's courage and trust had taught him a lesson he would never forget: how to love again. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, feeling the weight of the day lift, replaced by the first hints of something new. A bond had formed, silent but strong, between two lives brought together by chance, choice, and the endless frontier. Tomorrow, Rowan would ride again. Tomorrow, the world might be as harsh as ever. But tonight, he was no longer just a loner cowboy. He was a protector, a friend, a man who had learned the quiet power of compassion. The desert held its breath. The stars shone bright. And Rowan Hale, for the first time in a long while, smiled freely, knowing he had finally discovered something worth holding on to.